I am back today discussing the Fighting Handgun, and this is a brand new start to a video series where we discuss in the future also fighting rifles, fighting shotguns, 22 long rifles, and bolt action rifles. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below after this video. Did you like it? Would you want to see more? And what is the next platform that you want to see? Also, we're going to be discussing a wide variety of applications and the ideas of what a fighting handgun is. So I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, what you think makes a great fighting handgun. Before we get too far into it, I do want to give a huge shout out to Callaway Ballistics for always sending out some ammo, as well as creating the coupon code 704TACTICAL for 5% off and free shipping on orders over $200. They just did restocks, and if you haven't tried their 124 grain JHPs, they're under $21, $22 a box with a wide variety of flavors, and these things work out great. It's cool to train with what you're actually going to be carrying, and this gives you that opportunity. Now let's dig into the fighting handgun. We're going to break this down into a few categories, starting with the actual size of the handgun you may want to consider for a fighting handgun. The optimal size, in my opinion, would be something like the Glock 17. This is a Palmetto State Armory dagger, full-size long slide, which is equivalent of a Glock 17. This also fits Gen 3 parts, and the Glock 17 and other similar platforms like the Smith & Wesson M&P hold anywhere from 17 to 22 rounds standard, and there's a lot of those handguns on the market that fill this size, and it really is the perfect size when you consider what a fighting handgun is going to be for. It's got a long enough slide to be able to engage targets at a distance, put a little bit more velocity on the round itself, get a full-size grip so you can grab it in almost any condition, and it also gives you enough rail length up at the front to mount accessories, and that'll be another category we discuss in the future. Now, like everything, there's always going to be the top end and the low end, and the top end for me would be something like the Glock 34 or competition models of a wide variety of handguns. Making sure, though, that they don't have cutouts, because we're going to be discussing that in the reliability section. This has a longer slide, but it's still very manageable, a light recoil impulse, and it's not overly large. You want to avoid, though, any massive competition pistols or full-size steel guns, in my opinion, because a lot of times that weight is going to drag you down if you're truly using this as a fighting scenario. Now, we're not going to be discussing those scenarios, and we're not going to be discussing any training or techniques on how to engage a target in this video. It's merely taking my opinions because I've reviewed a lot of these style handguns over the years, including torture tests like you've seen in the intro, and giving you my opinions on which ones I would personally select if I did have to get into a fight. Now, continuing it with the size, I want to discuss about the smallest size that I would recommend for a fighting handgun, and that would be the compact size. So the Smith & Wesson M&P Compact, or something like the Glock 19, any of the generations. And this is the Palmetto State Armory Dagger Compact. They come standard with 15-round mags. You can still get a full-size grip. The slides are a little bit smaller, they're a little bit lighter weight, and they are easier to carry. So that would be about as small as I would go before you start getting making sacrifices for shootability and comfort in the hand. And the last thing I want to mention about the handgun itself is the fact that you want to pick something that feels good in your hands at the shop. You want to try the trigger, you want to try the grip, and you want to make sure there's no high spots or hot spots that are kind of irritating your hands, because you're going to want to train with this, which is absolutely critical, because you can buy the greatest gun in the world, but if you're not out there training and shooting, you're not going to be proficient, especially when you're stressed and your life is on the line. The next topic I want to discuss is brand, company, as well as reliability. You want to focus on a brand that has a pretty decent track record. It doesn't have to be the most expensive gun in the world, but focusing on a company that actually has a track record where you can look up and review a lot of different videos or maybe print articles that really discuss the reliability of the handgun you're going to use. You'll want to dig into that details, and that's what this channel is about. If you're interested in any of these platforms or the reliability of handguns or even how they fare in adverse conditions, definitely subscribe to my channel and go through the video backlog. Now, what I recommend personally is something like the Palmetto State Armory Dagger series on the budget end of things, as well as maybe something like the Glock or Smith & Wesson M&P platform for the mid-tier kind of gun. Now, there's a lot of other guns that I do recommend on the channel, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what gun to buy, but I just did want to discuss that you will want to consider brand and its reliability, and grabbing something with a good track record is only going to benefit you in the long run, especially if you're using this to defend your life. Now, I also want to discuss brand in the sense of parts compatibility. What you see here is 3 different guns, but a lot of the parts are interchangeable. 2 of these are Palmetto State Armory daggers, which are Glock clones, and that's what I want to bring up. I would strongly consider not necessarily the brand Glock, but a Glock clone or a Glock copy because of the parts interchangeability. Now, this is not going to be as important for competition shooting or even a personal defense handgun in your home. But when we're talking about a fighting gun, maybe that's something we're going to have to use for extended periods of time. Maybe even in a grid down scenario where you can't simply go on the internet and add to cart any parts you need. Having parts interchangeability in the field with other people, or even going into a local shop to barter, trade, or purchase individual parts, Glock or Glock clones is going to be a good option. You also have a ton of mag compatibility where you can swap out pretty much any Glock 19 mag with any Glock 19 clone from any company. And that is absolutely great. I've never been into a gun shop that doesn't carry Glock mags. The other cool thing about selecting the smaller size like the Glock 19 is the fact that the larger mags fit in here, but the smaller mags don't fit in the larger guns, so something to consider. So definitely dig into the brand as well as parts interchangeability. If it's a company that was just released not too long ago at SHOT Show and you're thinking, never heard of them, there's not a ton of parts on the market, that may be a great gun to have for other applications, but as a fighting style handgun, I would stay away from something like that. The next thing I want to discuss is calibers, and caliber is very important, and it goes back to I'm not going to tell you what caliber to grab, I'm going to tell you what caliber I use. I've selected 9mm because of the wide variety of loads. Also, the fact that 9mm seems to be everywhere. Again, I've never been in a gun shop that doesn't carry 9mm. You can also get high power 124 grain NATO spec 9mm. You can also get light recoiling training ammo to practice with. You can get jacketed hollow points and a wide variety of other rounds. And 9mm is probably the most prolific handgun caliber other than 22 that I've ever seen. It is a great option to carry a lot in the magazine without sacrificing a lot of performance, especially with some of the specialty and high power loads out there. And you can carry a lot on your person. So that is why I personally recommend 9mm for a fighting handgun. But this is where I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Argue it out. Let me know your experiences. Let me know what you think about 40, 45, and even 5.7. This should be good. Definitely let me know your thoughts down below. The next thing I want to discuss is reliability, and we've already touched on that when it comes to brand recognition and track record and history. But I also want to discuss reliability across the board and things you want to avoid when it comes to a fighting handgun that may be okay for competition or personal defense inside your home or in your car, but not good for an in-field reliable handgun. This is actually one of my personal defense handguns that I keep at the house. It's a Gen 4 Glock 34, but it does have this slide cut out. Now, this has actually been in the same location in my house for about 6 years, and you can see how clean and nice it stays. I don't worry about this functioning in this type of environment. What I would worry about is this was sitting in the holster and I was crawling on the ground, hiding behind cover and concealment. And as you can see in the intro, there's going to be different debris in the air as you shoot in different scenarios. When you're shooting through glass in a car, that just fills the air and gets into crevices. And if you've ever had glass sit on you, you know it's sharp, it's hard, it can get fine, it can be coarse, it can get into small different components. Same with dirt, and you don't want that wedging in your action. So I would avoid any slide cuts or alterations to your slide that would allow dirt to ingress into the action itself. As you can see in the intro, we've been doing a ton of torture tests, and initially a lot of the guns, when they get covered with dirt, just shake it right off with no problems as long as it doesn't ingress into the action. Now, as we push the tests further and further, the further dirt gets into the action itself or into the trigger mechanism, the more likely you are to run into a failure. When I test closed system guns like this, they last a very long time. We've actually done a lot of torture tests on the Glock setups as well as the Palmetto State Armory Dagger setup. So if you want to take a look at that backlog of videos, definitely do so. And this is where I'm gathering my information from. This is real world experiences that I've personally tested. And when you have slide cuts and things like that, the gun fails a lot quicker in a real world fighting style scenario. Again, when we're talking about a fighting handgun, we may be engaging a target with our rifles behind cover and concealment, and the gun may be dragging, even though in a holster, through dirt and debris, so you want to protect that action at all costs. The last thing you want to consider when you're picking out a fighting handgun is the accessories and the holster options. You want to make sure you can grab a good holster for your fighting handgun because it's primarily going to be your secondary weapon. And what I really like to do is get a nice tactical belt, either a gun belt, a duty belt, or a battle belt. This is a core essentials quick track belt, and I've fallen in love with this. This is also a Works holster, and Works holster is a great company that really has a ton of different holster compatibility options for full-size guns and a wide variety of weapons lights, including the O-lights you see here. Now, you may be wondering if I only shoot O-lights. No, I just test a lot of O-lights and a lot of stream lights because they seem to be that mid-tier light, and I put them through a lot of torture tests to really prove them out for future videos, and these lights are all currently in testing right now. So something to consider is making sure you can find a holster for your gun. Again, you don't want to buy an obscure gun that you can't find a holster for, but you can always get one custom made, so I guess that wouldn't be the end of the world, but it's something to consider. The next thing is you want to make sure you have a rail system up front to mount a light. There's a lot of scenarios where you will want to mount a light to your handgun. Now, I'm no tactician, but I feel like it's very important that you have a light mounted to your handgun so you can see what you're shooting at. Now, a lot of people would say carry a light in another hand so you can hold it off body and have them shoot at a target that's far from your center of mass, and I can see all that, but having a light on your handgun is key in my opinion because you may need your second hand to do other things like call 911, stay on the phone while you've drawn down on somebody, maybe interact with somebody, you're grappling with somebody and you need that free hand, but you also need your light to see what's going on. There's a ton of different scenarios where you may need to open a doorknob while you have your gun in your other hand and maybe move something out of the way or pick up something to look under something. Having a light mounted to your handgun is absolutely key in a fighting pistol. Now, moving along to optics. Optics are going to be a touchy subject on a fighting handgun. I definitely see the positives of having an optic, but make sure you're getting a strong, durable optic. And we've done torture testing on optics on the channel. This is a Sealy Bull. It's auto on, auto off technology. It's got a protective hood. You can see how beat up it is. I would have no problems running this optic. It's a shake awake technology, 50,000 hour battery life on top of a fighting handgun. It looks a little big. Some may say it looks a little goofy, but it works, and it works all the time. There's also a lot of other reviews that I've done on the channel on different optics that I would consider for a fighting handgun, but if you're going to be using an optic, I would stay away from this exact scenario right here, meaning a thick optic that rides above your sights, so if your optic does go down, you will be able to use your sight still. So that's why I look at something like this dagger with raised sights and a slimmer profile optic so that in worst case scenario, like you see here, let's go ahead and turn this down so I can show you what I'm talking about. You can still pick up your sights and engage your target. So this was what I would recommend if you are going to be mounting an optic to your slide for a fighting handgun. You never know what scenario you could run into, and having the ability to still use iron sights. I mean, even worst case scenario, you get a rod, you smash out that window if it was cracked and kind of bothering you, you smash it out, you get it out of the way, and now you still have iron sights to engage your target. So something to consider. The other thing I want to mention is a lot of the added on extra accessories, something like an additional trigger or maybe even mag wells and different things like that. If you're going to be adding them to your fighting handgun, make sure you take them to the range and run a lot of rounds through them to really prove it out. Anytime you change something on your handgun by adding weight to the reciprocating mass of your slide in the form of an optic or other things, you'll want to make sure it still cycles fine down at the range because this is something you're going to trust your life to. In summary, I hope this gives you an overview of what I consider a fighting handgun. Let me know if I got something wrong. I'm definitely not perfect, and this is just one man's opinion. So I'd love the comment section to be a learning experience for everybody. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about pretty much everything I said. I'd love to engage with you guys down there. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.